The lottery is huge in the United States. That's what everybody fantasizes about. You know, if I won the lottery, I would quit my job and start my own business and buy a house for my parents and give $1 million to each one of my friends. We have all had these conversations, right? It's fun to think about, but kind of a controversial issue. A lot of people are opposed to it, saying it's essentially a state-operated form of gambling that targets the more desperate, lower-income communities. You know, if you go to a poor area, you may see more advertisements for it and more places selling the tickets. The profits from these lotteries typically go to the state, and theoretically, they spend the money on schools or other programs that tend to benefit the higher income individuals. When you look at it that way, it's like the poor are paying a voluntary tax that ultimately benefits the rich, while others argue for the lottery, saying it's an effective way for the governments to raise money without resorting to actual taxes. People don't like paying taxes, and lotteries are an alternative way to raise money. Look, I'm not trying to take sides in any of this, just presenting the opposing viewpoints, but wherever you stand on the issue, you have to admit that those lottery tickets are enticing. I mean, where else could you spend a couple of dollars and have the opportunity to win millions? They really draw you in and keep you coming back each week. Psychologically, it goes far beyond buying a ticket because you're feeling lucky. You see those lottery winners on the news and think, oh man, that could have been me. And then over time, you develop this gambler's mentality where the more you lose, the higher you think your chances are of winning the next time because you're overdue for it. That is not the case at all, but it can sure feel like it. And then you get afraid not to buy a ticket because if you don't and your usual numbers are somehow drawn that week, you'll never forgive yourself. Those are just some of the reasons that Americans spend an estimated $100 billion on lottery tickets each year. And without a doubt, the two largest sellers of these tickets are Powerball and Mega Millions. In this video, I want to talk about the evolution and growth of these lotteries to what I would consider to be almost shocking levels, while making some key comparisons between them. Starting off with how they originated. See, contests that resemble lotteries go all the way back to ancient times and have been a significant part of US history going back to the early settlement days. Lotteries were used to establish prominent universities like Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, and utilized by many of the country's founding fathers way back in the 1700s. Benjamin Franklin used a lottery to raise money to buy cannons to defend Philadelphia during the Revolution. When a famous marketplace in Boston was burned down in a fire, John Hancock was involved in a lottery that raised funds to rebuild it. George Washington even used a lottery in a failed attempt to raise money to build a road that would go through mountains in Virginia. I feel like I'm name dropping all these founding fathers, but my point here is to show that back then, lotteries were a common way to finance public projects, but throughout the next century, they lost a lot of momentum. Following the Civil War, there was a lot of opposition against them for religious reasons, and a big scandal involving the Louisiana State Lottery reduced the public's trust. That one was actually a national lottery, the biggest one in the country as a matter of fact, with only 7% of ticket sales coming from Louisiana, so when this big bribery corruption scandal was uncovered, people lost confidence in this type of contest. In 1895, the US government made it illegal to transport lottery tickets across state lines, while most of the state governments banned them altogether. That was pretty much the end of lotteries for a while. For the next 70 years, the only ones that you would find were these underground numbers games. Then, in 1964, New Hampshire sparked a resurgence in state-run lotteries. They didn't have a sales or income tax at the time, and they were searching for a source of money. They ended up conducting this unique lottery where the numbers were tied to the results of horse races, and it proved to be a big success for them. 2 years later, New York started their lottery. 4 years after that, it was New Jersey, and by 1975, 12 states were doing it, mostly throughout the northeastern part of the country. See, when one state would allow it, people from bordering states would travel over and buy tickets, and that motivated those bordering states to start their own lotteries because people were buying the tickets anyway, and they wanted to be the ones collecting the money from it. From there, more laws continued to be lifted, and state lotteries became a common practice throughout a good portion of the country. Then, in 1987, the Multi-State Lottery Association was formed as a non-profit by 7 7 of these lotteries, they created a new game called Lotto America that held its first drawing early the next year. The reason for forming was that conducting one lottery instead of 7 separate ones reduced costs, and with more people playing, they were able to offer some of the biggest prizes along with some of the lowest chances of winning. By 1992, when it had spread to 14 states and Washington, D.C., Lotto America was rebranded as Powerball. I also think it's interesting that in 2002, the Multi-State Lottery Association started another contest called Hot Lotto, where the winning numbers were randomly generated by a computer. Well, as I understand it, the person in charge of writing the program that picked the random numbers also made a program that would tell him the winning numbers ahead of time, and then he would tell other people those numbers so they could win the contest and share the winnings with him. Does that make sense? It was a big fraud that was exposed in 2015. It contributed to declining ticket sales for Hot Lotto, so 2 years later, the game was discontinued and replaced with Lotto America. Those circumstances caused them to bring it back after a 25-year absence. Now, for Mega Millions, it's a little more straightforward. That one started in 1996 as a joining of 6 state lotteries branded as The Big Game. In 2002, after they had more than doubled their presence to 12 states, the name was changed to the much more familiar Mega Millions. The next comparison that I want to make is taking a look at the drawings themselves. Powerball started off with 2 drawings each week, but in 2021 added a third one, so as of the making of this video, the numbers are selected every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, whereas Mega Millions has their drawings on Tuesdays and Fridays. So do you see how they're kind of working together to not overlap with each other? For Powerball, if you don't know, you have to select 5 numbers between 1 and 69, and then 1 Powerball number between 1 and 26. It gets a little more complicated when you add in the multiplier that you can buy, called Power Play, that'll multiply the value of any non-jackpot prize you might win, except for the second prize, up to 10 times when the jackpot is under $150 million. Mega Millions is remarkably similar, except the fact that the first set could be chosen up to 70 as opposed to 69, and the Powerball, now called the Mega Ball, goes up to 25. Also, the Power Play multiplier is called a Megaplier, makes sense, that only goes up to 5 times, but does include the second prize. If you were to run the math on all of this, you would find that the chance of winning a prize of any kind is about the same in either contest, around 1 in 24, but your chance of winning a jackpot, meaning you hit all 6 numbers, is a little better with the Powerball. 1 in 292 million compared to 1 in 302 million. In other words, it is incredibly unlikely to happen. I don't want to get into the comparisons of all the wild occurrences that are statistically more likely to happen. All I think I have to say here is that when something is extremely unlikely to happen, the go-to phrase is to say that there is a 1 in a million chance. Well, you can go ahead and add 299 million to that, because winning the lottery is essentially a 1 in 300 million chance. That being said, if anyone watching this happens to play the lottery and win the jackpot using the numbers that I was choosing on the screen earlier, we should really talk to each other, right? Alright, another comparison that I think is important is looking at the states in which these lotteries have been available. As I already said, they each started as 6 or 7 lotteries joining together, and by 2010, Powerball was available in 31 states, whereas Mega Millions could only be found in 12 states. Though I do want to point out that those Mega Millions states included most of the bigger ones, like Texas, California, and New York. In total, Mega Millions was actually available to more people, 160 million compared to Powerball's 125 million. You might be confused as to why I'm giving you outdated statistics from 2010, and that is because that was basically the last year where any of this really meant anything. See, before that, it was like a contest where there was no crossover. Each state had either one or the other. You were either a Powerball state or a Mega Millions state. But in 2010, all of that went out the window when the two agreed to allow each other to sell tickets in each other's territories. Suddenly, both games were available in 43 states. In 2015, Wyoming joined, and in 2020, Mississippi did as well. As of right now, the only 5 states not participating are Nevada, because laws involving the casino industry have more or less prevented it, Alaska, because they feel that their spread out population means that they won't benefit in the same way, and Hawaii, Utah, and Alabama, because they don't allow gambling in any form. That deal to work together greatly expanded their reach and helped them grow much larger than ever before, leading me to my final comparison, the jackpots. That is a fun word to say. In April of 1992, the first Powerball jackpot was won at $5.9 million. 10 years later, later, the first Mega Millions jackpot was won at $28 million, and they have gone up significantly from there. Things are getting crazy when $28 million doesn't seem like a lot of money. In 2012, it was a big news story when the Mega Millions jackpot hit $656 million. Everyone was talking about it, running out to buy tickets. Ultimately, the money was split between 3 winning players. In 2016, the Powerball jackpot reached $1.56 billion, more than double the previous record when, again, the winnings were split between 3 people. 2 years after that, Mega Millions fell just short of setting a new record with their $1.54 billion jackpot, though it was the biggest one ever awarded to a single winner and remains the biggest one to come from Mega Millions. However, in 2022, Powerball went 40 drawings without a winning jackpot, causing them to set a new record at $2.04 billion that was won by a man in California. That one was so high that even the owner of the store where he bought the ticket won $1 million. All of the biggest jackpots have been awarded by either Powerball or Mega Millions, each of them responsible for 5 of the top 10 biggest jackpots in American history. You may even argue that some of these jackpots have gotten too high. You have to be careful what you wish for, because these cash prizes have oftentimes been a bad thing for the lottery winners. They typically get the choice to receive all of the money up front or to get increasing payments over the course of 29 years. There's always tax and investing implications to consider, but the safer option seems to be the annuity, because that is a lot of money for somebody to handle all at once. Many lottery winners go on to quit their jobs and lose purpose in life. They feel guilty about having all this money that they didn't really work for. Maybe others deserve it more. It creates a tricky dynamic with friends and family who often feel jealous or entitled. There are more problems that I could list here. Jack Whitaker is maybe the prime example of the lottery ruining his life. After winning a $315 million jackpot in 2002, he became somewhat of a celebrity because that was the largest amount ever won by a single ticket at that point. In short, he developed major family issues, drinking and gambling problems, dealt with lawsuits, he had some of it stolen from him. He famously said that he wishes he had torn up that ticket. Abraham Shakespeare is another tragic tale where he was murdered after winning the lottery. These are a couple of extreme examples, but a lot of lottery winners have had their lives negatively impacted by it. Let me know in the comments, what would you do if you won the lottery? Would it be a big spending spree of cars and vacations, or wise investments, something in between, or maybe you would tear up that ticket? And if you do play the lottery, are you gravitated toward that Powerball or the Mega Millions, or does it just depend on the jackpot at that time, or whatever feels luckier? They are very similar at this point, to where I can't even imagine there's a big enough difference between the brands to influence your decision. So any other thoughts you have about Powerball or Mega Millions or any other lottery, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.